Emma and Ella Parker were just 10 years old when they set out with their aging German shepherd, Bravo, into the frozen woods of
Woohoo!
Silver
This is so
Creek.
much fun!
What should have been a playful walk in the snow turned into a nightmare that would change their town forever. Bravo's sudden growl shattered the silence, pulling the twins off the trail and toward a horrifying sight. Two police officers, beaten, bound, and buried alive beneath the ice. Breaths fading, hope
Woohoo! This
slipping
is
away
so
with
much
every
fun!
falling flake. The girls never imagined that this moment would expose a powerful crime ring, tear open secrets at the heart of their town, and prove that bravery can come from the smallest hands and the oldest paws. What follows is a story of loyalty, love, and miracles in the cold. One that will make you believe courage can rise from even the most fragile voices. Before we begin, tell me where you're watching from. And don't forget to subscribe and tap that notification bell so you never miss these stories of strength and second chances. Because sometimes heroes don't wear badges. They hold a leash and trust an old dog who still remembers how to save a life. The first breath of winter brushed the town of Silver Creek with silver dust. The sky was a pale steel sheet stretched over the world, the air cold enough to nip at the edges of thought. Emma Parker walked with careful, steady steps along the frosted trail. She was 11 years old, a slender girl with chestnut brown hair tied tightly into a ponytail beneath a knitted emerald beanie. Her skin was soft and fair, but her eyes, sharp green like mountain pines, held a seriousness that made her seem older than she was. People often said Emma was the quiet twin, the one who thought before she spoke, who noticed when the wind shifted or when birds went silent. She liked that about herself. Ella Parker, her mirror image in almost every physical way, walked 2 steps ahead, kicking up soft clouds of powder snow with every enthusiastic step. She shared Emma's bright eyes and chestnut hair, but wore it in a messy braid that bounced wildly each time she hopped across the trail. Ella never walked when she could skip or run. She talked to every tree, every squirrel, and every odd shape of snow she passed. She called it keeping the forest company, and in her mind, the trees liked it. Ella was bold, sometimes reckless, but her laughter melted even the iciest mornings. Between them trotted Bravo, a noble German shepherd nearing his 9th winter. His fur was a proud mixture of black and iron gray, thick and rugged around his neck like a seasoned soldier's scarf. His amber eyes still glowed with intelligence and vigilance, though age carved quiet stiffness into his joints. Bravo once trained for search and rescue with the Ranger Unit, saving lost hikers and missing skiers among the mountains of Colorado. But an injured hind leg from a cliff rescue 2 years prior had retired him early. Noah Parker, their father, often said Bravo still believed every day was his mission to protect, and today felt no different. Noah Parker had kissed the twins' foreheads before letting them leave the ranger outpost, perched high above the valley. A tall man built from years of tree felling and mountain hiking, he had thick shoulders, dark hair peppered with gray strands, and a beard trimmed close over a weather-browned jaw. His hazel eyes were warm whenever he looked at his daughters, but today worry flickered in them. He had lost his brother to a blizzard long ago, an incident etched deep like a scar in his heart. And since then, winter storms were not just weather, but warnings. "If the wind changes direction," he had said in his deep voice, "don't wait. Come straight home." Emma remembered his hand resting heavy on her shoulder, his thumb trembling faintly. Trauma had made Noah protective, and Emma carried that weight too, wanting always to prove she could be trusted. Ella, however, had only grinned and declared, "We've got Bravo. The storm should be scared of us." Even now, her joke still played inside Emma's thoughts, like a tiny rebellious flame against the cold. The forest wrapped around them like an ancient cathedral of towering evergreens, their branches bending under blankets of snow. With each step, the snow beneath their boots cracked in small, crisp pops, as if the earth were whispering. Emma breathed in the biting air, and she felt both fear and peace swirling together, fear of the unpredictable wild, peace in belonging to it. She glanced sideways at Bravo every few steps, just to make sure he was still calm. He was, tail level, ears attentive, steps sure. That steadiness, that silent assurance, made her feel safe. Ella, meanwhile, narrated an imaginary adventure. "And then," she said dramatically, arms flapping, "the fearless explorers, us, must climb the tallest mountain to find the legendary—" She paused, thinking. "Marshmallow Cave." Emma snorted despite herself. "That doesn't even sound like a real quest." "But it is. We'd melt the marshmallows with our hot chocolate and—" Ella stopped when Bravo suddenly halted. His ears flicked up like twin arrows aiming at something invisible. His tail stiffened, his muscles coiling beneath winter fur. A low rumble emerged deep from his chest, vibrating through the air like a warning from the earth itself. Emma froze. Her breath turned to steam that hung motionless. "Ella," she whispered. Ella's grin vanished. Her eyes widened, not in fear, but in electrified curiosity. "What is it, big guy?" Bravo didn't answer, but he didn't need to. He took a sharp step off the trail, paws plunging into deeper snow, nose low, tracking something Emma and Ella couldn't see. "Bravo, wait!" Emma called, grabbing the leash, but he pulled with sudden, urgent force. Not playful, not curious, determined, driven by instinct. Emma's stomach dropped. Noah once told them, if Bravo ever reacts like that, trust him. Something or someone needs help. The wind shifted, sharper, biting. Snowflakes flew sideways and the sky darkened as if the storm had heard their father's warnings. Emma's pulse raced. Fear fluttered like a trapped bird in her chest. But beneath it, a stronger feeling rose. Responsibility. "We should go back," Emma said, voice thin. Ella looked at her twin, at Bravo's rigid stance, then toward the dense trees ahead where light faded into white mist. She swallowed hard. Her voice, for once, was small. What if he's trying to save someone? Emma hesitated, torn between her father's fear and Bravo's instinct, between obedience and courage, between safety and the unknown calling from the snow-drenched forest. Finally, Emma loosened her grip on the leash. "Okay," she whispered. "We follow him." And with that choice, small yet immense, the world began to change. Bravo surged ahead into the gathering storm. Emma and Ella, hands clenched and hearts pounding, ran after him, boots sinking deeper into the cold, white wilderness. They didn't know it yet, but their journey into the snow would soon lead them to a sight so terrifying, so impossible, that it would reshape everything they believed about bravery, trust, and destiny. Bravo barreled forward through the thickening drifts, his paws cutting deep trenches in the untouched white. Emma and Ella struggled to keep up, their lungs burning from the cold, their hearts pounding not only because of fear, but because something inside them said this moment mattered. The forest ahead cloaked itself in hush. The wind's howl became a warning, the branches overhead cracking like bones as they swayed. Emma felt her pulse in her fingertips, each beat urging her to turn back, but her legs kept moving, propelled by Bravo's certainty. The dog stopped so abruptly that both girls nearly tripped over him. His ears pricked forward, his entire body stiff as if carved from stone. His breath puffed in sharp clouds. He stared down into a shallow depression in the snow. Emma's eyes followed and froze. A hand. Human. Pale, bluish. Fingers stiffened into claws of desperation, half buried in the frozen earth. A choked gasp escaped Ella as she scrambled closer, brushing snow aside with frantic movements. Soon they uncovered a face. No, two faces, lying side by side. Two police officers in thick navy jackets, badges half buried under frost. Their skin was mottled with the cruel kiss of winter. Bruises spread across their cheekbones like dark fingerprints. The first man looked to be in his early 30s, his hair dark and cropped close to a rugged forehead. His eyebrows were thick, masculine, and softened by the faintest shadow of stubble dusting his jawline. His features might have been handsome in warmth, but now they were tight with pain. His lips cracked from cold. Beneath the ice, his throat pulsed, weak but stubborn. A name tag barely visible read, Cooper. The second man had lighter hair, sandy blonde, and slightly longer, curling against his pale skin. His nose was strong, proud, but now streaked with dried blood. His eyelashes fluttered, as though wrestling with a dream he could not escape. His build was lean, but the tension in his jaw revealed a man used to fighting hard even when losing. His badge said, Miller. Ella looked at Emma in horror. They're alive? Emma pressed trembling fingers to the blonde officer's chest. There, a heartbeat, flickering like a candle in wind. Yes, she whispered, voice cracking. But barely. Bravo whined softly, nosing the officers urgently as if begging the girls to act faster. Emma forced her shaking hands to obey. She pulled off her gloves, ignoring the scream of cold slicing into her skin. Dad said keep heads warm first, she muttered through clenched teeth. She unwound her scarf and wrapped it around Officer Miller's head. Ella removed her own scarf for Officer Cooper, though her fingers fumbled. She was braver in jokes and adventures, not emergencies that smelled like death. Their breaths came in panicked bursts. They needed help. Now. Emma tugged her emergency radio from her coat pocket and pressed the button so hard it clicked painfully. Dad! Dad! It's Emma! We found 2 officers. They're freezing and bleeding and... Static roared back at her. The storm was interfering. Try again, Ella cried. Emma turned slightly, shielding the device from wind with her body. Dad, please! We need help at Snowy Ravine! Bravo found them! They're alive! A crackle. Then Noah's voice, tight as rope under strain. Emma, listen. Do not move them. Keep their faces clear. Wrap their heads. We're coming. Stay calm. I'm coming. Emma swallowed a sob. She couldn't afford to cry, not when 2 lives were dangling by a thread. She reached for the zipper of her jacket, ready to give up another layer if needed. But Bravo pushed his massive body against the officer's legs, curling around them tightly, the warmth of an old hero doing his final duty. Ella's teeth chattered as she crouched, her small hand finding Officer Cooper's frozen fingers. Don't die, she pleaded quietly. Don't die here. A sudden groan drifted up from the blonde officer, Miller, his eyelids twitching open just enough to reveal irises the color of storm clouds. He stared straight at Emma, dazed, but clinging to her presence like a lifeline. Help! His voice was a ghost of itself, barely a breath. Emma nodded fiercely. We've got you. Snow swirled faster, thick sheets of white falling as though the sky meant to bury the truth again. In the distance, the faintest wail of sirens. Ella's heart leapt. "They're coming!" she exclaimed. But relief arrived with fear. Sirens meant urgency, danger, time nearly gone. Emma clutched the radio again. "Hurry!" she screamed into it, even though she didn't know if her father heard. Snow beat against her face, stinging like punishment. She pressed closer to the officers, as if her closeness alone could anchor them to survival. Bravo growled suddenly, head jerking toward the deeper woods, ears sharp, body rigid. Emma followed his gaze and saw only the blur of snow-drenched trees. But something moved there, something that did not belong to wind or winter. For the first time since Bravo ran off the trail, Emma wished they had never followed. Snow hammered the ravine with a punishing force, as if the storm itself wanted to bury the truth again. Emma wrapped her arms around herself, but fear was colder than the blizzard. Ella pressed both her hands against Officer Cooper's, whispering frantic encouragement, while Bravo crouched protectively over both officers, keeping the wind at bay with his broad body. The faint sirens were growing louder, yet still felt miles away. Emma stared into the trees again. She couldn't shake the sensation that something watched them. The silence between gusts felt too aware. "Emma," Ella's voice cracked. "What if we're not alone?" Emma wanted to say that was impossible, but lying felt impossible too. "Stay close," she simply replied, her voice hollow. A sudden movement slashed across the corner of her vision. Dark fabric whipping through the wind, the hurried shape of a person bolting deeper into the forest. Bravo reacted first, barking sharply, his muscles coiling as though ready to give chase. Emma grabbed his collar. "No, don't leave us!" Her heart thrummed like a trapped bird. Whoever that was, they didn't want to help. They wanted these officers found too late. The sirens crescendoed, headlights cutting through the thick wall of snow. A rescue sled powered by heavy-duty treads skidded to a stop at the edge of the ravine. The driver leapt out first, Jonas Hale, a seasoned paramedic in his late 40s with a barrel chest, thick ginger beard threaded with silver, and hands that looked both capable and scarred. His pale blue eyes scanned the scene with the quick precision of a man who'd seen too much danger to waste time on panic. He barked orders into a radio clipped to his vest, his deep voice steady despite the chaos. Close behind him ran Ivy Reyes, a slim rescue responder in her late 20s, with olive skin and sharp cheekbones. Her long black hair was braided tight over her shoulder. Once a competitive skier, she moved with controlled urgency, eyes narrowed with focus, a jagged scar cut across her jawline. A reminder, perhaps, of some mountain that once tried to claim her. She knelt beside Officer Miller first, pulling a heat foil blanket from her pack. "Pulse is thready," she muttered, determination firing in her dark eyes. Jonas knelt beside Officer Cooper, his big hands surprisingly gentle. "Both hypothermic, frostbite setting in," he said. "Minutes from cardiac arrest." Emma felt the world tilt beneath her. They had been minutes from death. Ella clung to Bravo, tears streaking her red cheeks. "We tried," she whispered. Jonas looked at the girls, really looked at them and softened. "And you did exactly what heroes do. You kept them alive." Emma blinked, stunned by the word heroes. It didn't feel like bravery. It felt like terror refusing to win. Jonas and Ivy worked quickly, securing warming packs, wrapping both men in insulated blankets. Jonas hoisted Cooper gently, Ivy stabilizing Miller with practiced ease. When they lifted the officers into the covered sled, Emma noticed Miller's hand twitch toward them. His eyes flickered open again, storm-gray eyes locking with hers. Gratitude lived there, and fear, as if he knew more danger was coming. Jonas caught the direction of Emma's gaze. "What did he see?" he asked. Emma hesitated. She didn't want Ella to panic more, but lying would help no one. There was someone watching from the trees. They ran. Jonas's jaw set like granite. "Armed?" I don't know," Emma stammered. "But they didn't want us to help." Ivy stood, her breath misting in sharp bursts, her brows knitted. "We need to move now." She lifted her radio. "Dispatch, we're inbound with 2 officers, alive but critical. Unknown hostile presence in woods." Static responded. Then, "Copy, patrol en route." Emma wasn't sure what patrol meant, but the tone made her chest tighten. Ivy helped the girls into the second sled. Bravo jumped in beside them, pressing his warm flank into Emma's side. She buried a hand into his neck fur. "Good boy," she breathed. He wasn't panting from the cold or fear. He was watching the tree line still, ears pricked, eyes burning with suspicion. Jonas slammed the door of the first sled shut, then hopped into the driver's seat. Engines roared. Treads churned ice into shrapnel of snow as both vehicles accelerated. Within seconds, the ravine disappeared behind sheets of white. Inside, Emma held Ella's trembling fingers in her own. She forced a breath, one that didn't quite reach her lungs. Ivy glanced back at them. "You both saved their lives," she said firmly, but there was a shadow beneath her praise. "There's a reason someone tried to silence those men." Ella's voice was a thin thread. "Will that someone follow us?" Ivy didn't answer right away. Finally, she said, "If they do, they'll have to go through a lot more than a snowstorm this time." The reassurance didn't reach Emma's bones. She thought of that figure in the trees, watching, waiting. The sled hit a bump. A loud clang rattled around them. The lights flickered. Ivy's head shot up toward the roof. "What was that?" Emma didn't want to know, but Bravo stood, growl deepening, warning them that the storm was not the only predator in Silver Creek tonight. The inside of the rescue sled rattled with every frozen ridge of snow they crossed. The engine roared. The windows blurred with flurries pounding like desperate fists. Emma pressed close to Ella and Bravo as the German shepherd stood braced on stiff legs, staring at the ceiling with a low growl vibrating from deep in his chest. Ivy Reyes leaned forward, squinting up at the metal roof as if she could see through bolts and ice. Her jaw tightened, and she placed a reassuring hand on Emma's shoulder, gentle, though her pulse throbbed visibly at her temple. "Stay seated and hold on," Ivy said, voice firm but laced with caution. "Jonas will get us to the clinic in a few minutes." The reassurance fell flat when another metallic clang struck the roof, this one sharper, heavier, as if something was clinging to the sled rather than falling from the trees. Ella squeaked and grabbed Bravo's thick fur for courage. "There's something up there," she whispered. Ivy moved toward a radio panel when the sled suddenly lurched. The lights flickered again. And then, the sled slowed. Engine choking. Snow roaring louder. Emma's heart bottomed out. The sliding sensation beneath the treads felt wrong. "They're stopping." The engine sputtered once more, then died completely. Silence swept in like a blade. Ivy's hand hovered over her firearm. "Jonas?" she called into her radio. "What's going on up there?" Static replied like a mocking laugh. Ivy cursed under her breath. She turned to the girls. "Whatever happens, stay behind me." The door at the front creaked open, and Jonas Hale climbed down, boots striking the snow outside with a thump. In the beam of the headlights, his barrel-chested form looked smaller, vulnerable against the vast white wilderness. "Engine's been tampered with," he shouted over the wind. "Looks like something ripped out the—" A blur of motion slammed into him from the side. Jonas grunted, his shoulder smashing into the sled. Ivy yanked her sidearm, shoving the door open with her boot, and jumping out without hesitation. Emma clutched Ella tighter. "Is he okay?" Ella asked, tears pooling. Ivy disappeared into the white swirl. Bravo barked fiercely, claws scraping the aluminum floor as he fought to leap outside. Emma held him, barely. Snow whipped inside the cabin, invading with icy fingers. The storm swallowed shapes quickly, but a figure emerged slowly. Jonas staggering back, hand clutching his arm. His sleeve was torn, blood blooming darkly across it. His beard glistened with frost as he gasped. "He had a knife. Couldn't see his face." Ivy dragged him behind the wheel casing of the sled for cover. She scanned the trees. Her sharp eyes, once merely focused, now sparked with protective fire. "Someone came to finish the job," she growled. Emma's stomach knotted. Someone wanted those officers dead, and anyone who helped them, too. She looked through the windshield toward the first, sled ahead. Officer Miller and Officer Cooper were inside, unconscious and helpless. Shadows flickered around that sled, silent shapes closing in. Ivy barked into her radio again. "Patrol, this is Reyes. Officer down, hostile contact, need immediate—" A bullet punched through the back window of the sled. Glass exploded, raining shards. Ella screamed. Emma shielded her head. Bravo launched forward with a furious snarl, teeth bared at the broken glass lamp of night. Ivy dropped low, pulling the girls to the floor. "They're firing to disable us," she hissed. "They want the officers before backup arrives." Another shot cracked, this time striking the metal plating near the fuel line. Ivy's eyes flared. "We're sitting ducks here." Jonas gritted his teeth, forcing himself upright despite blood dripping from his arm. "I can still drive," he said, voice rough. "Just cover me long enough to get the engine kicked back." Ivy hesitated. She knew he was pushing past his limits, but time wasn't a luxury. She nodded once. Jonas crawled toward the front, each movement painful. Ivy turned to Emma and Ella. "Listen to me. You are brave. You already saved 2 lives. But now I need your help again." Emma felt everything inside her quake, but she nodded. "What do we do?" Ivy pointed at Bravo. "You keep him calm. If he runs out, he's a target." Ella hugged the dog like he was the only anchor in a churning sea. Ivy crouched, peering around the open door, gun ready. "When I say run, you 2 stay low and go to the front sled. Keep close to the officers. The safest place is near them." Emma blinked. "Why? They can't even move." "That's why someone is trying to kill them," Ivy said. The truth hit like an avalanche. The wind shrieked louder, as if the storm itself was frightened by what hid in the trees. Jonas called out, "I've got the ignition back, just need a push." Ivy fired warning shots into the tree line. "Now," she ordered. Emma and Ella bolted from the sled, Bravo at their heels, storm tearing at their coats. Snow blasted their faces like shards of ice. The first sled loomed ahead, steam rising from its hood. Emma wrenched the door open and climbed inside, heart punching the inside of her chest. Officer Miller lay on a stretcher, a breathing mask over his mouth, his face still pale as death. Officer Cooper shivered violently under blankets, unconscious, fighting for every breath. Ella scrambled in after her sister, slamming the door shut. The girls collapsed beside the officers. Bravo pressed against them like a living wall. Miller's eyes cracked open again, storm gray staring straight into Emma's terrified green. "Run," he rasped, voice thin as a dying flame. "They'll kill you." Emma grabbed his cold hand. "We're not leaving you." Outside, the engine roared alive and Ivy's shout cut through the air. "Buckle in!" The sled lurched forward again, yet, in the rear window, Emma caught one final glimpse, a dark figure at the edge of the storm, watching them leave, waiting. The danger had not been avoided. It was now traveling behind them. The rescue sled cut through the blizzard like a desperate heartbeat refusing to stop, its treads grinding against ice as snow swirled violently around the headlights. Inside the lead sled, Emma held tightly to Ella and Bravo, their bodies pressed together for courage more than warmth. Officer Miller's storm-gray eyes were half open, his breaths shallow yet stubborn, while Officer Cooper remained unconscious, his body shivering uncontrollably beneath the thermal blankets. Emma focused on the rise and fall of Cooper's chest, silently begging it not to slow. Every few seconds, Bravo turned his gaze toward the rear window, growling low and warning that danger was still close. Ivy's voice crackled over the radio, tense but steady. "Jonas, keep us moving. Patrol units are en route from town. We're almost clear." Jonas Hale grunted a response, his breathing ragged from the knife wound on his arm. The blood had soaked into his jacket sleeve, dark and crusted now, but he drove forward, teeth clenched, determined not to fail the children he had called heroes. Emma watched the way he leaned forward over the steering wheel in the sled behind them, like a mountain unwilling to collapse. The blizzard began to thin as they descended from the higher ridge. A glimpse of lights appeared ahead. Civilization, safety, a promise that help was near. Ella sobbed softly, relief washing through her like melted snow. "We're going to be okay," she whispered, as if saying it out loud made it true. But then the radio screamed with static, followed by a distant explosion of gunfire. Jonas shouted, "They're still on us! Someone's following from the ridge!" Ivy's tone sharpened into command. "Drive faster! We can't let them reach the clinic!" Emma's heart hammered. The K Truisat, the faceless shadow, was relentless. The sleds surged forward, engines whining as they entered Silver Creek's outskirts, passing snow-capped roofs and flickering street lamps. Finally, they skidded into the emergency bay of Silver Creek Ranger Clinic, a compact wooden building reinforced with metal siding to withstand mountain storms. Waiting at the entrance was a woman with short, copper-blonde hair pulled back into a no-nonsense bun. She wore a ranger jacket over scrubs and carried a med kit under her arm. Her name tag read, Dr. Harper Sinclair. She looked around mid-30s, tall and athletic with steel blue eyes shaped by years of watching lives balance on the edge. A faint burn scar curled up her left forearm, a reminder of a wildfire rescue she'd never speak about. Trauma had taught her efficiency, not sentiment. "Get them inside, now!" she ordered, voice cutting through the wind like a blade. She snapped instructions at a young nurse, Caleb Morris, a thin man in his early 20s with blonde curls, nervous eyes, and a gentle nature that made him tremble in crises, but never back away from them. Caleb immediately grabbed the stretcher, handles. Together, the team moved Miller and Cooper from the sled into the clinic. Emma and Ella stumbled after them, clutching Bravo's fur as if he were the last familiar piece of their world. As soon as the doors shut, locking out the storm, warmth flooded them, dense and overwhelming. For a second, the girls felt like collapsing, but Ivy knelt in front of them. "You both stay where I can see you. Your dad is on his way. You did everything right." Her voice softened then. "You saved their lives twice now." The compliment couldn't quiet the dread gnawing at Emma's chest. She stared through the clinic window where blowing snow obscured the dark tree line. Somewhere out there, someone was hunting them. Dr. Sinclair pressed a stethoscope to Officer Miller's chest. His eyes fluttered open and landed on Emma again. "You, the girls," he rasped, voice scraping like gravel. Emma leaned closer despite her fear. "What do they want? Why did they do this to you?" Miller swallowed hard. The movement seemed to take every ounce of strength. "Illegal transport. Weapons shipments. We got too close." His gaze sharpened with painful clarity. "Someone powerful. Someone local." Ivy's head snapped up. "Do you know who?" Miller's answer came out broken. "Collins?" Then his eyes rolled back and alarms erupted. Caleb rushed to adjust oxygen, while Dr. Sinclair barked, "Stabilize him!" Ivy cursed softly and grabbed her radio to call dispatch. Collins. The name struck Emma like a hammer. Mayor Patrick Collins, smiling face, holiday speeches, the man who gave the twins candy at festivals. The person everyone trusted. She suddenly felt like the ground beneath her wasn't real anymore. Ella squeezed her sister's hand. "It can't be him. Can it?" But Emma had no comfort to give. She was thinking of the dark figure in the trees, Jonas's attacker, the bullets that shattered their window, and how none of it happened by accident. The clinic's doors burst open again. Snow sprayed inside, and a tall figure stepped in, snow dusting his dark hair and thick coat. Noah Parker, their father. His hazel eyes were storm-wild with terror until he spotted his daughters. "Emma! Ella!" He rushed forward, sweeping them into his arms. His strong grip trembled with relief and fear all at once. Bravo barked excitedly and pushed his head under Noah's hand. Noah dropped to one knee, pulling the dog to him too. "You kept them safe, all of you." But before safety could settle in their bones, a sharp crack echoed outside. A gunshot. Noah spun toward the window, shielding the twins instinctively. Ivy sprinted to the door, weapon raised. Jonas braced himself behind a column, bloodied but unbroken. Dr. Sinclair shut off the lights in the lobby. Darkness fell like a command. Emma's heart plummeted. The storm wasn't done with them, and neither was the enemy. The lights in the clinic flickered out, throwing the lobby into a cold, breath-holding darkness. Storm winds howled outside, rattling the metal siding like a beast pacing the walls, and Emma felt Ella's fingers latch onto her sleeve. Bravo stood planted between the twins and the glass doors, hackles raised, muscles rippling beneath his thick winter coat, ready to charge into danger without hesitation. Noah Parker positioned himself in front of the girls, one hand gripping his sidearm, the other spread protectively behind him. His jaw clenched so hard, Emma could see the muscles jump beneath his skin. "Stay low, stay quiet," he whispered. Ivy Reyes slid along the wall toward the entrance, gun lifted, her silhouette sharp with tension. Jonas Hale braced himself against the reception desk, his injured arm pressed to his side, sweat beading on his brow despite the frigid air. A second gunshot cracked through the night. Glass splintered in the outer window of the triage room. Emma ducked, pulling Ella with her. Bravo snarled, teeth glinting like a warning carved from the dark. Dr. Harper Sinclair peeked out from the ICU corridor, eyes blazing with urgency. "We need to get them farther inside," she hissed, gesturing toward the stretchers where Officer Miller and Officer Cooper lay, machines humming, fighting to keep their hearts steady. Noah nodded. "Jonas, can you move?" Jonas huffed, adjusting his stance. "Hurts like hell, but hell's better than dead." Together with Caleb Morris, a young nurse with trembling hands but steel in his gaze, they rolled the stretchers deeper into the hallway, farther from the targets the assailants sought. As Caleb guided the wheels, Emma noticed his lips trembling, not from cold, but from fear. Yet he didn't run. He didn't freeze. He stayed. That was courage in its quietest form. Another voice erupted from behind the emergency doors, a deep, commanding shout. "Silver Creek Police, open up!" Everyone froze. Ivy hesitated, squinting through the jagged shards of broken glass in the foyer window. The silhouette outside was tall, broad-shouldered, and wrapped in a dark, tactical parka. Light from the snowmobiles outside glinted off a duty belt. A badge caught the reflection. Relief spread through Ivy's face, and Noah's exhale was nearly a prayer when the figure shoved his way inside. Officer Mason Clark. Late 30s, fit with a military sharp posture that spoke of combat service long before he ever pinned a badge to his chest. His hair was a sandy buzz cut beneath his cap. A jagged scar cut down his eyebrow, making his intense blue eyes look even hungrier for justice. He was known in town as dependable but distant. War had taught him how to shoulder every burden alone. Mason swung the door closed behind him, snow gusting in after him like a final gasp of outside danger. "We secured the west entrance, but someone's still out there," he growled. Night vision scope on a rifle. Professional. He scanned the room, eyes narrowing on the twins. "And you two are the reason we still have officers alive. Good work, kids." Ella's breath caught at being acknowledged. Emma only nodded, fear keeping her silent. Ivy briefed Mason quickly. "Shooter, possibly more than one, motivated to silence the officers." Mason's jaw locked. "Then we make damn sure they don't." He motioned for backup through his radio, then turned to Noah. "We need a defensible room, no windows, reinforced walls." Dr. Sinclair stepped up. "Radiology, lead-lined, only one entrance." "Move," Mason ordered. The procession shifted, officers on stretchers, followed by medical equipment and terrified hearts. Emma and Ella pushed beside Bravo, each footstep trembling but determined. They had come too far to freeze now. As they reached the safer corridor, a thud shook the clinic, someone slamming against the emergency exit. A handle jerked, metal groaned. The shooter was no longer hiding. They were coming in. Ivy cursed and fired a warning shot down the hallway. Echoes crashed against the walls. Emma pulled Ella into the radiology room as Caleb and Jonas guided the stretchers inside. Dr. Sinclair slammed the heavy door and locked it, setting additional metal braces with trembling yet practiced hands. Bravo positioned himself in front of the door, growls constant, deep and deadly. Mason took cover near the frame, gun trained, breathing steady as though he'd been born for sieges. Noah crouched beside his daughters, pulling them close. "I've got you," he murmured, voice cracking. "No matter what, I've got you." But Emma could feel it. His hand trembled. On the stretchers, Officer Miller stirred again. His voice was weak, cracked ice. "Don't let them near us. Collins, he knows we survived." His panic climbed until the monitors beeped frantically. Mason shot a sharp look over his shoulder. "Mayor Collins?" Ivy's expression darkened. Disbelief turned to furious clarity. The man running this town is running guns? Caleb's voice wavered. But Collins funds the clinic. He saved the Winter Festival last year. Emma realized something chilling. Bad people rarely looked like villains. Sometimes they looked like leaders. Sometimes they smiled when they shook your hand. Another slam against the reinforced door. A hinge screamed. Mason steadied his weapon. "Everyone behind cover. They want in," he said in a low burn of a voice. "They'll face a war." The room held its breath. Snowstorm or not, the real storm had already arrived. The blizzard finally loosened its grip on Silver Creek, as though the sky itself had grown tired of rage. Dawn arrived shyly, soft silver rays breaking through the torn clouds, turning the mountains into quiet guardians draped in white. The ranger clinic, battered from the siege, looked like a survivor itself. Cracked windows frozen with lace-like patterns, snow piled against doors, and footprints leading nowhere except into mystery. Inside the radiology room, the air smelled of antiseptic and lingering smoke, but a steady warmth now pushed back the cold fear of hours before. Emma leaned against the wall, fatigue sinking into her bones. Ella sat beside her, clutching Bravo like a lifeline. The old German shepherd was still alert, ears tuned to every sound, but his tail sat on the floor, tired but proud. Their father, Noah, crouched in front of them, brushing strands of hair from their faces. His hands shook slightly, not from fear anymore, but from relief. "I'm so proud of you," he murmured, voice thick with emotion. "Both of you. And you too, Bravo." The dog's eyes softened, and he pressed his head into Noah's palm. Officer Cooper, wrapped in heated blankets, studied the girls with awe. The bruises on his face looked less frightening in the fragile morning light. His voice was rough, but warm. "You saved us. Twice. I owe you my life." Officer Miller, still unconscious but breathing steadily, lay nearby, his chest rising with renewed strength. Machines hummed like distant hope. Ivy Reyes stepped closer, lowering herself to Emma and Ella's eye level. Her stern expression had melted into something gentler, like ice cracking to reveal the river beneath. "You two changed everything," she said. "Most adults wouldn't have had your courage." Emma swallowed, unsure how to answer. She didn't feel brave. She felt like a scared kid who just refused to run away. Jonas Hale slumped against a cabinet, his stitched arm resting on his chest. When he flashed the girls a crooked grin, it looked like he was holding back tears. When this town tells stories one day, they shouldn't forget the twins who outran a blizzard and outsmarted criminals. Dr. Harper Sinclair checked Miller's breathing again, then turned to the girls with a soft, tired smile, one that suggested she had found something miraculous in the darkest hours. "You brought back more than 2 lives from that forest. You brought back faith." For a moment, silence settled, thick, meaningful, reverent. Then, the entrance doors burst open, not with violence this time, but with promises. The first responding police units flooded in, guided by radio calls the clinic had managed to send after the gunfire stopped. Blue and red lights flashed like heartbeats outside. Officers hurried inside to secure the building and remove the captured attackers still unconscious under makeshift restraints. A lieutenant approached Ivy, breath forming a cloud as he spoke. "Backup sweeping through town. Collins is in custody." Ivy closed her eyes, relief washing over every sharp edge she carried. Justice had finally pierced through corruption. Noah drew his daughters closer, as if he feared the truth might float away. "It's over," he whispered. But Emma shook her head slightly. "It's not over," she said quietly. "Not really." She glanced at Cooper, then at Miller. "They still have to heal." She looked at Ivy and Jonas. "You still have to fix everything broken." Finally, she pressed her cheek to Bravo's head. "We all do." Noah stared at her with pride widening his eyes. His little girl had crossed a line between childhood and something braver, something wiser. Outside, the storm clouds parted enough to reveal the faint blush of sunrise stretching across the mountains. The light touched the roof of the clinic first, then the snow, then the faces of those who had survived the longest night Silver Creek had ever known. Officer Cooper struggled to sit straighter, his voice steady despite pain. "When I get back on my feet, I want you both to meet my own partner. His name's Hero. He retired 2 years ago. Old dogs still save lives, just like Bravo." Bravo wagged his tail once, a gentle drumbeat of agreement. "As long as people care," Emma said, "there will always be heroes." The room seemed to breathe that truth in. Noah stood, picking up the twins' coats. "Time to go home," he said softly. "Grandma's going to worry if we don't show up before breakfast." Ella giggled for the first time in days. Emma smiled too, soft, tired, real. Before leaving, the girls walked to Miller's bedside. Ella brushed a tear from her cheek. "Please wake up soon," she whispered. "We didn't save you for nothing." Emma placed her small hand over his. "You're strong. You're not alone anymore." Outside, Bravo sniffed the fresh morning air, letting the cold nip at his muzzle. Then he looked back at the clinic, as if aware that something sacred had happened there. A reminder that loyalty could defy death, and love could outlast the storm. No one cheered, no music swelled. But the sun rose, and that was enough. Sometimes, God doesn't send angels with wings. Sometimes, his miracles arrive in the form of 2 frightened little girls and an old dog who refuses to stop fighting for what's right. Emma, Ella, and Bravo remind us that courage doesn't always roar. It may come from tiny hands, trembling hearts, and paws that still remember how to protect love even in the darkest storm. And just like those officers who were buried beneath the snow, there are people around us every day who feel forgotten, hidden beneath their struggles, waiting for someone to notice that they are still breathing, still worth saving. So if this story touched you, share it with someone who needs faith restored in their own battle. Comment Amien to stand with the quiet heroes around us. And make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss another story of love, redemption, and everyday miracles. May God bless every heart watching this video. May He guard your steps, strengthen your spirit, and shine His light through every storm you face. Because as long as love leads the way, miracles will always find a path.